Hello people, and welcome to Crypto Exposed. Okay guys, got a post here by Hedera that I thought I'd share with you, and it says, Hedera has been selected for Wyoming's Frontier Stable Token, in brackets FRNT, the first US state issued stable token. Trusted, fast, compliant. The future of public sector payments is here. Okay, great stuff. So I've got the actual article here. There is some things that I am going to need to clear up as well just before I do finish the video. So I'm going to go through the article first and foremost, and then I'm going to give you just a bit more backstory to this, because I have seen, people seeing this news and there's been a bit more to it than what people understand. So I'll clear that up after I've read the article. Okay, so it says, Hedera to bring trusted, fast and compliant stable token infrastructure to the public sector. The Wyoming Stable Token Commission, in brackets WYST, announced at its last commission meeting that the Frontier Stable Token, in brackets FRNT, the first state-issued stable token in the United States, will soon also be available on Hedera, a trusted public network governed by leading global institutions. Hedera was selected as the only additional blockchain to be a candidate for FRNT during the Commission's Q2 evaluation, having met stringent criteria for speed, reliability and regulatory alignment. FRNT was created under the Wyoming Stable Token Act of 2023. As the first US state-issued stable token, it is fully backed by US dollars and short-term treasuries, with an additional 2% reserve to ensure stability. The token is designed to demonstrate how digital assets can enhance public finance by enabling faster, more transparent and more efficient payments. Beyond its technical benefits, FRNT directly serves the public. Interest earned from treasury purchases funded by the program will be directed to Wyoming School Foundation program supporting education across the state. Quote, our goal with FRNT is to set a new standard for how states leverage digital assets to better serve the public, unquote, said Anthony Apollo, Executive Director of the Wyoming Stable Token Commission. Quote, the Commission selected Hedera for candidacy because its technical edge aligns with our commitment to security and compliance, unquote. Hedera was chosen for FRNT because it delivers what modern payments require: fast settlement, predictable costs, and trusted governance. Transactions on Hedera finalize in seconds with low, fixed fees, making it suitable for everything from retail purchases and tax refunds to real-time disaster relief and instant public payroll systems. The network is carbon negative and capable of processing 10,000 transactions per second, delivering the scale and sustainability needed for real-world finance, while its Hedera Council governance model ensures regulatory alignment and long-term stability. Quote, Hedera is already trusted by governments and enterprises moving from pilots to real-world adoption, unquote, said Mance Harmon, co-founder of Hedera and chairman of Hedera Council. Quote, Wyoming's selection of Hedera shows how responsible innovation can deliver real-world financial solutions, setting a precedent for other states and ultimately the world to follow, unquote. FRNT has been piloted for use in areas such as contractor payments, emergency disbursements, and other public services. More information on how to purchase FRNT on Hedera will be available soon. Okay, real great stuff to see here. So real incredible news. So yeah, there's something that I do just need to clear up here, because this is something that I saw when I did first see the news, and people were thinking that this is solely on Hedera. It's actually not. I actually recorded this at first and I didn't know this news at the time, so I've actually re-recorded this. It's not just Hedera. So there are other networks that the stablecoin will be on. But I'll say this. It's not on every network, right? So the one thing that I will still say is that they've picked Hedera out of many other networks that haven't made the cut. So while we can accept, okay, this isn't just Hedera specific, it's still great that Hedera is one of the first networks that's been chosen for public sector finance, to be a first public sector backed US stablecoin. That is still very impressive. And what you've got to understand is, this is the thing that I've said to you guys before with stablecoins. You've got to understand that when people are going to be putting stablecoins out, they are going to want them on as many networks as possible, because that's how you're going to have as much reach as possible for it to be utilized, right? Because you've got to think, like, people are going to be on all different types of blockchains. And this is why I keep saying about interoperability, right? Like, that's going to be another key factor when we're talking about mass adoption. But yeah, like, if let's just say, for example, somebody was on, let's just say, Cardano, what if they was to say, well, you can't use that network because we don't use Cardano, right? So then they're restricted to Hedera. And although, you know, a lot of these networks are generally good, fast, etc. So, you know, they're pretty similar in that regard in terms of what they can and can't do. Just on a general scale, what I'm talking about here, I'm talking about mass adoption scale, because, you know, when we're talking about like enterprise level, there's going to be some more factors that are going to be, you know, different and make a difference as to what chain you choose. But it's kind of like when you talk about the internet, right? If you're talking about getting broadband, if you're just an average user of broadband, you don't need to know like how many megabytes per second it's going to download certain things and stuff like that. You just want to know, can I just use it and it's going to be fine? I'm not going to have any issues with, you know, my TV running slow, or my internet running slow, or my downloads running slow. Now, if you're someone who's like a developer, for example, or something like that, and you need to use the internet on a much heavier scale, or you're a gamer or you're a streamer, that information is a lot more important, right? That's the point that I'm making here. So for the average people here, it's not going to be as big a deal like what network they're on. But you do have people who can be tribal, right? So some people are like, well, I'm a Cardano holder, I'm not going over to Hedera, you know what I mean? I don't want to use that network, I want to stick to Cardano, for example. So, you know, you got to think about these types of things. People are going to want these stable coins to get as widely adopted as possible, and to do that by putting it on as many networks as possible. So anyway, to me, I don't look at that as a bad thing. To me, I look at it as Hedera was chosen. That's the point. And, you know, if you look at the reasons as to why they said that they chose Hedera, fast, compliant, secure, etc., you know, these are all the positives of Hedera. And the other thing I'll say is this, right? Let's just say that this stablecoin eventually goes on to like Ethereum, for example, and stuff like that. Now, Ethereum's got obviously a big fan base because it had the first mover advantage. But what you've got to understand here is, at the end of the day, if you go into Ethereum and use the Ethereum network to do a transfer, when you could use Hedera, which will go down to 0.001 cent to do the transfer, compared to Ethereum, where depending on the day, depending on the time, and how busy the network is, will depend on how much the actual transaction is going to cost. What's the better alternative, right? So this is where I do think Hedera could probably win over anyway. You know, like I think Hedera could get a lot more adoption in that regard anyway, because it's the better choice. So, you know, to me, I don't look at this as that big of a deal in terms of it not just being picked for just Hedera alone. I just don't think it's realistic when you're talking about stablecoins. I think stablecoins are going to be tokens that are going to be on as many networks as possible, because that's how they expand their reach, their liquidity. That's how they have to get it to be widely adopted, right? It has to be on multiple networks. So all different people on different networks all have access to the stablecoin. That's just common sense, right? So not a big deal in that regard. But hey, to me, this is the first US official state-backed stablecoin, and Hedera was chosen. So to me, that does give me confidence about Hedera's future. It shows you that people are looking at Hedera, like, you know, the US are looking at Hedera here. It is one of the networks that was chosen. There's many that haven't been chosen. So at the end of the day, that does give you a lot of confidence that, you know, it's on the radar. Right, it is on the radar. So who knows when it comes to more things to do with, you know, the US, you know, governments and stuff like that, talking about, you know, hashgraph, blockchain technology, etc. Well, you know, could Hedera get picked for other stuff like that, right? Could there be other use cases that could come out in the future where Hedera is one of the networks that's utilized? So to me, this still says a lot. I still think this is really promising. I'm happy to see this, to be honest with you. It's just more adoption, and it's just more confidence in Hedera as a network. So, you know, overall, I think this is a huge positive. I don't think it's anything to feel down about, that it's not just Hedera. As I've said before, it's not going to be just one chain that, you know, wins everything. At the end of the day, it's in here. Like, that's what I've always said. Like, as long as it's getting a piece of the pie, a piece of the action, that's what you want, right? Because there's plenty of other use cases for Hedera to thrive in as well. So you just want the fact that it's in there, that it's getting a part of it, that it's getting a part of that action, some of that activity, some of that volume. All that's going to be positive in the end for the long term. So great stuff to see here. I'll keep an eye on this, and if I get any more further updates, I'll be sure to let you know. Thank you very much for watching this. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. and hit that bell. Take care.